So for the last few years, the Sony ULT Field 7 has been a sleeper hit. The speaker has better SMS separation and better bass than the JBL Boombox 3. Plus, you can use it with a mic for karaoke, and it even has a built-in light feature, but we don't talk about that. But a lot of people just looked over it. But today we're going to see how the new JBL Boombox 4 compares to the Sony ULT Field 7. Is JBL back on top, or are you still sleeping on the Sony ULT Field 7? Regarding pricing, this right here is going to be a deciding factor. The JBL Boombox 4 has a retail price of $550, which is a lot, and it's the same as the JBL Partybox 320. Just let that sink in. Whereas with the Sony ULT Field 7, it has a retail price of $500, but it likes to go on sale on a regular basis for around $400, if not sometimes a little less. Nonetheless, if you want to pick either of these two speakers up, they'll be linked down below, or you can always press on the YouTube shopping button. And if you want to further support the channel, then you can always watch some of the related videos in the description down below. So first, there's the design of these speakers. Now, both of these speakers are large Bluetooth speakers. They're both super durable thanks to their fabric wrap bodies, so bumps and scrapes aren't going to be an issue, and they're both waterproof, and they both weigh in at around 13 pounds. But unfortunately, if you want a shoulder strap, you're still going to have to get a third-party option, because neither of these two speakers come with a shoulder strap attachment, even though both of their smaller brothers, the JBL Extreme 4 and the Sony ULT Field 5, do. Now, both of these speakers also have built-in light features, but I don't think that these light features are worth using, because with the Boombox 4, this light feature only flashes orange or white depending on the bass boost mode that you're using, but it still flashes to the beat of your music, but it's not color changing like, let's say, on the JBL Partybox whatever. Now, the light feature on the Sony is color changing, but I feel that since it's tucked away in the passive radiator, it's not worth using because it's just very hard to see. So with both of these speakers, they have light features, but personally I just turn them off because I don't think that they're worth using. Now, when it comes to battery life, this is where these speakers are very different from one another. Now, the Sony ULT Field 7 has an advertised battery life of 24 hours, with it playing at 50% volume and with the light feature turned off, but with the ULT feature turned on, which is good. Whereas the JBL Boombox 4 has an advertised battery life of 34 hours, which is a lot, but that's with the speaker playing while in its stamina mode, which is going to severely reduce its bass. But with stamina mode turned off, which is how you should be using the speaker on a regular basis, you should really only turn on stamina mode if you know you're not going to be able to plug in. The JBL Boombox 4 is going to have an advertised battery life of 28 hours, but real-world use with both of these speakers playing at 75% volume and with their bass boost or ULT feature turned on, with both of these speakers, you're going to be good for around 10 hours playback time, but 75% volume on the Boombox 4 is noticeably louder than 75% volume on the Sony. But the main difference between these two speakers is that you can actually remove the battery on the Boombox 4 if you want or need to. Now, removing the battery on the Boombox 4 isn't as easy as with JBL's Partyboxes, because you do have to get an Allen key to undo some screws, and you also have to remove a very thick rubber grommet. And JBL did it this way so that the Boombox 4 can still have its IP68 rating. But the important thing is you can swap out the battery if you want or need to. Now, the JBL Boombox 4 is using a JBL 600 battery, which is the same battery found in either the JBL Partybox 520 or the JBL Partybox 720. So if you want, you can actually mix and match batteries between these three speakers. And for those curious, both the JBL Partybox 320 and the JBL Extreme 4 are using the JBL 400 battery, and the JBL Partybox 120 and the JBL Partybox Encore 2, not the Essential, the good one. These two speakers are using JBL 200 batteries. So just for comparison, here's the 200, that's the 300, and then here is the, what is this, the 600. So it's basically a 400 and a 200 combined. And to charge both of these speakers, they both charge via a double barrel AC port, and there's no external power break that you have to worry about, which I really appreciate because it just makes life a little easier. You don't have to worry about losing a power break, or if you were to take either of these two speakers to a friend's house, it's going to be a lot easier for you to charge these speakers up if you need to, because AC cables are super common. And with both of these speakers, if you were to use them while they're plugged in, you are going to get a performance boost out of them. They're both going to get louder, and they're both going to have more bass. And yes, in order for the Boom Boombox 4 to actually turn on, the battery does need to be installed, because if you try to turn the speaker on without the battery being installed, it's gonna turn on for like a split second but then turn back off. Now, when it comes to ports, this is where things get very interesting. Now, with the Sony, you can plug in a microphone for karaoke, which I really like, and unfortunately, you can't with the Boombox 4, which is a shame just given how loud this speaker actually gets. Now, with the Sony, you can only plug in one wired mic, or pro tip, you can also get a Sony's wireless microphone kit, and this way you can get two wireless mics going. So with the Sony ULT Field 7, not only does it sound good, you can also use it for karaoke, which is something you simply can't do with the JBL Boombox 4. But something that I really like about the Boombox 4 over the Sony is that it does have a USB-C port, which you can use to charge your own devices, or you can also use it as a wired connection with your phone. Whereas with the Sony, the speaker has a USB-A port, which I don't feel is as useful in 2026. But another thing that the Sony has over the Boombox 4 is that it still has an audio jack, so you can still use it with a wired connection that way. But overall, I am disappointed at just how basic the ports on the JBL Boombox 4 are. I think a speaker of this size and price should have an audio jack and maybe even an audio out jack like with JBL's party boxes, and a single 1/4 inch input would have been nice as well. But regarding Bluetooth connectivity, both of these speakers can be connected to two devices at the same time, so you and a friend can both be DJ, and latency is not an issue for either of these two speakers, so you can use them to watch videos with on your phone. And when it comes to audio codecs, both of these speakers have support for SPC and AAC, but the Sony also has support for LDAC, which is Sony's own in-house high-res audio codec. But if you do want to use LDAC, you do have to be an Android user because iPhones top out at AAC, but still the Sony sounds great even if you're using it with AAC. And neither of these two speakers have a Wi-Fi support, which personally I really don't care, but maybe JBL will make a separate Wi-Fi version of the Boombox 4, which I will promptly ignore because I think they're pointless. But wait, if you're actually going to charge all of this stuff, then check out our partners over at Anker. They've got a ton of battery banks and chargers, and personally, I've been using this new 7-in-1 charging station from Anker. Now, personally, I really like this charging base because it has two built-in USB-C cables which retract, and you can use them to either charge small devices like your earbuds, or you can even use them to charge your larger devices like your iPad or MacBook. There's an additional USB-C port, so you can plug in an additional cable, and there's also a USB-A port if you've got any older devices that are using a USB-A cable. Plus on the back, you've got an additional three-prong AC ports, so you can plug in any of your other devices, and this base also has a built-in screen, so you can see how much power it's putting out. You can also see how much power each device is taking, and you can even get temp readouts just to be safe. Honestly, this charging base does save me a lot of clutter here in the studio, because I have a lot of devices that just constantly need to be charged. So if you want to pick this charging base up, it'll be linked down below, or you can always press on the YouTube shopping button. And I'm also going to keep a coupon code in the pinned comment down below so that I can get you an extra discount. But with all that out of the way, let's talk about sound. Regarding speaker setup, the Sony ULT Field 7 has a dual front firing woofers, dual front firing tweeters, and dual passive radiators that shoot out the sides. And this is a very typical speaker setup, but Sony does a lot with it. Now, the JBL Boombox 4 also has dual front firing woofers, dual front firing tweeters, and dual passive radiators that shoot out the sides. But what is new here is that this speaker now has a passive radiator that shoots out the back for added bass. Another new feature on the JBL Boombox 4 is that it now has its bass boost button like with JBL's party boxes. And there's two settings, deep and punchy. Personally, I prefer deep because it gives you more kick in your bass, whereas with punchy, I feel that it just adds a lot more resonance, so it messes with the rest of your music. And then there's the Sony, which has its ULT mode. ULT 1 is going to increase your bass, and this is the setting that you want to use while indoors, and ULT 2 is going to increase both the sound pressure and your bass. So you're going to get the most out of this speaker. But now we're going to go ahead and jump into the sound test. Both of these speakers are playing at 75% volume while unplugged. And we're going to be using the Boombox 4 with bass boost set to deep, and the Sony ULT Field 7 is going to be playing while in ULT 2.
I was standing, staying still, never said what I feel. And every time I took the blame, carried all this quiet shame. Cause all the pressure in my chest, I've gotta fight to catch my breath. When every step still feels the same, trying not to break. Where do I go from here? Maybe I'll disappear. If I don't try, I'll never know. I'm waiting on you. Where do I go from here? There will be no more tears. Kill the doubt, feed the fire, hear the voice inside. Up, it's my turn this time. They took a shot, now I want mine. You fall, I rise, I take the wheel. So this is how it feels. Where do I go from here? Maybe I'll disappear. If I don't try, I'll never know. I'm waiting on you. Where do I go from here? There will be no more tears. Kill the doubt, feed the fire, hear the voice inside.
So when it comes to sound, these two speakers sound and perform very differently from one another. Now, I still feel that the Sony ULT Field 7 sounds better than the JBL Boombox 4 because the speaker has much better instrument separation, it sounds more open, and it does have better detail in the mids than the Boombox 4. With the Boombox 4, the speaker is putting a lot of emphasis on the mids and highs, so it does start to sound a little nasally. Now, distortion in the highs hasn't been an issue for me, but the JBL Boombox 4 can sound a little narrow when compared to the Sony ULT Field 7, which does sound more balanced. But when it comes to max volume, performance, and bass, the JBL Boombox 4 gets noticeably louder than the Sony ULT Field 7. The max volume on the JBL Boombox 4 is up there with, let's say, the JBL Partybox 120, which honestly is shocking. And thanks to that new rear firing passive radiator, the JBL Boombox 4 has noticeably more kick in its bass than the Sony as well. So I feel that the JBL Boombox 4 is going to have no problem with, let's say, a 20-person party, whereas with the Sony ULT Field 7, it's going to be better for like a 15-person party, if you even know that many people. And with both of these speakers, if you were to use them while they're plugged in, you are going to get a performance boost out of them. They're both going to get louder and they're both going to have more bass. But still, the JBL Boombox 4 gets much louder than the Sony ULT Field 7. But overall, get the JBL Boombox 4 if you want the most bass and the highest max volume in a small package. But I still maintain that the Sony ULT Field 7 sounds better than the JBL Boombox 4 because it sounds more balanced and more open. But finally, let's talk about pairing these speakers up with other speakers. Now, with both of these speakers, if you have two of the exact same speakers, then you can wisely pair them up and get them to play in left and right stereo mode, but they have to be two of the exact same speakers. Now, with the Sony ULT Field 7, it is using Sony's wireless party chain, so you can pair it up with other Sony speakers that are also using wireless party chain, like let's say an ULT Field 5 or an ULT Field 3, and you can also pair it up with Sony's older speakers, like let's say the XG500 or XE300, just to name a few, or you can also pair it up with any of Sony's larger box speakers like either the Tower 10 or the Tower 9. The only thing is you can't pair up your Sony ULT Field 7 up to the Sony ULT Field 1 because the ULT Field 1 does not use a wireless party chain. But then there's the JBL Boombox 4, which is using Auracast, so you can pair it up to other Auracast speakers, like let's say the JBL Charge 6 or the Flip 7, Clip 5, Go 4, or to the Grip, and you can get them to all play in sync. But also you can pair up your JBL Boombox 4 up to any of JBL's larger party boxes that are also using Auracast. Like let's say the JBL Party Box Encore 2, Party Box 1, 23, 25, 27, 20, or to the Ultimate, and you can get them to play in sync as well. But unfortunately, since the JBL Boombox 4 is using Auracast, you can't pair it up to any of JBL's older speakers that are using Party Boost, like either the JBL Boombox 3, the Boombox 2, or to the Extreme 3, Charge 5, Pulse 5, Pulse 4, Flip 6, or to the Flip 5. The JBL Extreme 4 is the only JBL Auracast speaker that can connect to both Auracast speakers and Party Boost speakers. And also, even though the JBL Boombox 4 is using Auracast, you can't pair it up to JBL's Party Life sticks and get them to play in sync like you can with, let's say, a Party Box. But nonetheless, if you are planning on growing your collection of speakers, the JBL Boombox 4 gives you a lot of options. But just keep in mind, if you're upgrading from, let's say, a Boombox 3 or a Boombox 2 or any other older Party Boost speaker, you can't pair them up. But with all that being said, if you're trying to choose between these two speakers, with the JBL Boombox 4, I do feel that you are paying a premium for this speaker, but you are going to get way more bass thanks to its new rear firing passive radiator, and it's going to get louder. But I don't think that it sounds as good as the Sony ULT Field 7, because the Sony sounds more balanced and open. It just doesn't get as loud or have as much bass, but it still has a lot. But the really cool thing about the JBL Boombox 4 is that you can easily remove the battery if you need or want to. But a cool feature that the Sony has over the JBL is that you can use it for karaoke. Overall, I think that choosing between these two speakers is going to be a personal preference, but I still gravitate toward the Sony ULT Field 7 because you get more bang for your buck. But the Sony ULT Field 7 still has a room for improvement. If you made it this far, I guess you enjoyed the video, so hit the like button and get subscribed. If you want to pick any of the products up, they'll be linked down below. And if you want to further support the channel, check out the merch. I made some shirts and hoodies that look and feel great. And you know I can be very particular, so I'll only slap my name on something if I'm really proud of it.